Green Noise is back for season 2.
Welcome to Green Noise, a podcast series from CapeNature that is bringing nature to life, and we use white noise to try to sleep better, but green noise to make life better.
You've got this wall of fire coming towards you. What are you going to do?
It's a massive shift in tourism.
To build an inclusive and connected society, especially in the Western Cape.
Women just do things differently.
Welcome to Green Noise, a podcast series from CapeNature, the Biodiversity Conservation Authority of the Western Cape. You're in season 2, and I'm speaking to you live. If you're only listening, you can't see it, but we also video these from Assegai Bush, which is in the Jonkershoek Nature Reserve, a beautiful conservation area run by CapeNature, for another really important conversation featuring 2 phenomenal guests. One of the core principles of CapeNature, and for me, any decent ecotourism and sustainability organization and project, is of truly meaningful inclusivity, where people, no matter what their status of physical ability or disability, are able to access and enjoy spaces that are meant for everybody, to enjoy nature, to enjoy the environment, no matter what their physical or mental makeups. And for that reason, we're going to be having a conversation today about accessibility and the ways that CapeNature and other organizations going about making sure that this gorgeous ecosystem, this biosphere that we are all so lucky to live in and move through, is truly for all people. I'm thrilled to welcome onto the show Shiraz Ismail, who's the Ecotourism and Access Director for CapeNature, and Russell Fulmer from Capeable. Capable, you get it. You see it in your mind. It makes sense. Welcome to the both of you. Thank you so much. What an office place today for us to do this, Shiraz. This isn't bad.
Yeah, this is every day. If you're a CapeNature staff member, every day at the office.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
You're making me jealous now.
Yeah, Russell, welcome. Russell, let's start. I'd love to know what Capeable is about. It's an organization that I'd never heard of until I was kind of prepped for today's interview, but it sounds really important. It's got a great name. What's the story?
Well, first of all, looking at the fact that I have a disability myself, the word disabled has the word able in it, and I live in the Cape. So I thought it was a nice play on a word, so hence the name and the brand Capeable. But it was really born out of my frustration about not being able to travel easily. And I wanted to set up a tourist operation such that we could make tourism accessible to us with disabilities. And we've been in existence since just early 2000s, so we've been around for a while. But low-key, we specialize in the environmental assessment and in the training of people in the workplace, preparing the workplace to accommodate people with disabilities, and also helping coach people with disabilities as to how they can fit into the workplace.
Okay.
And that's really where my passion is at the moment, is to try and make everybody with a disability feel they're worth something. And travel is also key to that.
Absolutely. Please tell me a little bit more about that. So, what I think about often is that as a broadly able-bodied person, 90% of the year, I do get injured a lot from overzealous tennis playing. But as a broadly able-bodied person, I have kind of been shown how to see the extent to which able-bodied people often don't see how inconvenient, impractical, and inaccessible so much of normal architecture, normal buildings, normal meeting plans, normal functionings of workplaces and travel is for people who are disabled. And beyond, I guess, I think the obvious that people's minds go to is like a ramp, for example, to get into a building. In what other ways do we need to think about changing our built and natural environments to make them more accessible for all kinds of disabilities?
Well, first of all, I think we should take the normality out of it, because nothing in life is normal. But at the end of the day, to me, able-bodied folk see what is comfortable with them. And many folk don't have anybody with a disability in their family or in their society. Therefore, they don't get an appreciation of what it takes a person with a disability to do something. And that's really where one of our training workshops is around sensitization, where we take people who are able-bodied and give them a journey into the disability world and get them to understand what it takes to adapt your life once you've become disabled. Unfortunately, we do have people who are born with disabilities, and those congenital disabilities, it's very interesting. You think they won't have the same frustrations as a person who acquires a disability later on in life, but they have exactly the same frustrations because they're comparing themselves to the able-bodied world that they see around them. But once you start opening people's eyes, it's amazing how the empathy comes out.
Sure.
And suddenly my experiences have been quite embarrassing sometimes, where people get overzealous in trying to assist me.
I see.
And in the early days when I needed assistance in and out of the car, people would often come and I'd ask them, could you get my wheelchair out of the boot of my car? Those are the days before we had compact wheelchairs and things. And suddenly when I said, that's fine, you've put the wheelchair there, now they want to grab me and they grab my arm. And I've got to say to them, no, don't grab my arms because those are my legs. If you grab them, I'm going to fall.
Yeah.
And they don't have that understanding and appreciation. And it's not because of their ignorance, it's because they've never been exposed to it.
For sure.
And to me, one thing that's sad is that we've always boxed people with disabilities. Society, for years, we've categorized people, we branded them, we put them in little containers. We must just stop containerizing people. Just let everybody integrate. Let everybody work together. And when you see kids playing around, they have no barriers. It's us adults, and the older we get, the more barriers we create.
It's also kids who don't kind of subject themselves to a sense of what's normal and what's not. Everything's much more free and like non-judgmental and containerizing, as you say. Shiraz, what I really, really appreciate about CapeNature is that accessibility and the social equity, right, of having anybody, no matter what their living circumstance, being able to enjoy CapeNature reserves and conservation and ecotourism and biodiversity and the rest. It's not a nice to have. It's an absolute essential, non-negotiable, which I think is great. Tell me a little bit about your experience of working to try and make sure that CapeNature is an accessible, meaningful place for people who are disabled.
Yeah, Dan, thanks for that question. I think it's a mindset issue. And it's also about doing the right thing. You know, I think from a CapeNature perspective, it is critical for us to build an inclusive and connected society, especially in the Western Cape. If you look at some of our attractions that we have within our tourism stable, it's most probably some of the most breathtaking attractions, whether it's a landscape, a seascape. And I think what's important for us, and we took it on board very, very early when CapeNature embarked on this journey, is to make sure that every citizen in the Western Cape is able to have access to these beautiful nature reserves for which we are the custodians for and for which we manage. And that has certainly been the driving force behind CapeNature's endeavors, whether it's developing a braille trail for the visually impaired, whether it's developing accommodation units, self-catering, glamping sites and so forth. That has become institutionalized. It's part of CapeNature's DNA.
Excellent.
And it's no longer an afterthought. You know, every new development we embark on, we pay attention to detail around promoting and developing universal accessible products.
Tell me about a braille trail, because that's so interesting to me. It's like one of the key attractions of nature is to look at it. And so if you are visually impaired, fully or partially blind, to still be able to experience the beauty and the wonder through word choice on a braille trail or something similar, and the right information to tell someone what they're moving through and looking at and what about it is interesting or worthy of love. Tell me about how these braille trails have been put together and where are they?
Okay, we've got a 3-kilometer braille trail out at Vrolikheid Nature Reserve. And it has been in existence for a number of years, and it is used. So again, we had to consult the experts in the sector, what we can do, what we cannot do, what needs to be in place. And I think what's nice about Vrolikheid, it's very popular for birding.
Oh, I see.
So you immerse yourself on the trail with braille interpretation, but also taking in the sounds of the birds in the background and what nature has to offer. So it's not just about the interpretation, but also creating that immersive experience.
Yeah. I'm always stunned by how many of the best birders are blind because they're operating purely off of call. And they have such an incredible sense of being able to hear, okay, that noise means that is over there, in ways that people who I guess are flunking out on, relying on eyesight just don't have. Please, Russell, tell me about trying to engage with natural spaces as a person with a disability, or broadly for people with disabilities to do that? Because I imagine in so many ways, transport, information, terrain, there are all kinds of challenges beyond, is there a boardwalk?
Dan, it's a very interesting thing is that there's so many aspects to the environment that limit a person with a disability. But to come back to the point about the visually impaired experiencing nature, and particularly floral, which is mostly visual, had an experience with a person who was blind, and he wanted to go and see the whales. And somebody said, but how can you? And he said, but I see things differently.
Oh, I see.
And when you take on board that kind of thought, it means that he's not got any barriers. He just wants to experience like anybody else. So when I want to go and travel, I'll do a lot of homework. But because I have a physical disability, I know that beaches are not that accessible. I know that, hiking trails are not that accessible. So I will pick places that I can go to. And CapeNature's inspiration in terms of bringing the world of nature to people with disabilities has been fantastic, and I've been able to assist with some of those projects. So when you're dealing with a visually impaired person, we've got lots of things that we bring into the equation in terms of tactile indicators of pathways,
Right.
and also communication stuff. Your hearing impaired community, it's more for them to have information and access to information in a written form, and if you can train people up in sign language. But for those of us with physical disabilities, many amputees don't really consider themselves as very disabled, because with prosthetics these days, they can do most things.
Sure.
And, they hike mountains, they climb Everest. But my friend that I'm working with now, Taryn Tomlinson, she's been up Kilimanjaro and she's in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And, it just proves that you can do anything you want to. And for myself, I've crossed the ocean twice from here to South America on yachts. And it's about the people that you have around you who want to facilitate your adventure, and about you not seeing those barriers as barriers.
I see.
You then see them as challenges, and by exposing people to that barrier, next time hopefully they will have made the changes. And this is what CapeNature are doing in their project, including the disability component, because the phrase that we use a lot in the world these days is universal access.
Yes.
And if you stop boxing everything, you can then make it free to everybody.
I see.
And, as long as you understand certain disabilities need specific tools, then bring those in. And technology today, the most useful technology we have is in everybody's pocket nowadays. Whether you're visually impaired or hearing impaired or physically challenged, you take your cell phone.
Tell me a little bit about how Cape Able has worked with CapeNature in the past to make some, projects and alterations to make CapeNature destinations more accessible to more people.
The biggest projects I've worked on with CapeNature have been around the built environment, Roshapan being the one, and Grootvadersbosch, and I worked alongside the architect there because that was a recycling project which was very, very inspiring. And then through Cape Town Tourism, which is how I got involved with CapeNature,
I see.
we did sensitization training around tour guides and around venues that were accommodating people with disabilities. So that's where Cape Able has actually had its influence in the tourism industry up until now.
That's amazing.
And I'm hoping that we're going to do some more, Shiraz.
Definitely.
Oh, that was a compromised answer. We hope it's true, but it's also on tape. Please tell me, Russell, a little bit more about how because I guess it's not surprising that I've never heard of Cape Able because I am broadly able-bodied, but I imagine that you've been able to find a part of the tourism industry, which all these disabled people who want to go and experience the Western Cape fully and richly. And you've been able to go, well, we actually know how to do that for you.
It's very difficult to find the people, because when we look to the South African population, many people just don't see travel and tourism as accessible to them
I see.
financially.
Huh.
So what we look at is more the international traveller, and myself and my wife's also in a wheelchair. We've done a lot of international travel, so we've been experiencing the bigger part of the world from our wheelchairs. So when it comes to getting people with disabilities out into the travel industry, we say, go and do it, and we'll give you key pointers. And we've got a nice database of accessible venues to go to. And for example, I would recommend people go and spend a weekend at Roshapan. Pick the season when there's water and the birds are around and things like that. And I know that a person with a disability of a physical nature is going to get around. Most people with hearing and visual impairments are going to be able to enjoy it very, very comfortably. So, we can and we have referred people. In my partnership now with Taryn, we are looking at pushing the actual planning of tours for people now. So that we're going to be finding. But unfortunately, to find the local population, it's very difficult because the cost factor has been a big one. But what CapeNature are doing, which is really inspiring, is that they're looking at the international world and they're looking at the local.
For sure.
And they're making sure that the locals have the opportunity. We now have to just get the people to come and challenge that.
Right.
And enjoy it.
Right.
And it's all through marketing and getting the brand out there.
I see. Shiraz, tell me, beyond Cape Able, what other partners you've worked with to try and ensure there is maximum universal access possible at all times with CapeNature's projects?
Before we go on, Dan, I need to make mention that my relationship with Cape Able goes back more than 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Prior to me starting with CapeNature, when I worked for the Department of Economic Development and Tourism. And back then we had a destination marketing agency called Cape Town Routes Unlimited.
Okay.
And that's where I met Russell for the first time.
Oh, amazing.
And it was really about setting up standard operating procedures, regulatory things. But when I made the transition to CapeNature, that's when the light bulb moment went on. We go beyond things on paper to actually the built environment and really making a difference for people with disabilities. And that I saw as an amazing opportunity. So some of the key partners, obviously Cape Able being a key one for CapeNature. We also have Warriors on Wheels Foundation, which is doing amazing work in Cape Town and the Western Cape, really advocating, doing audits, doing reviews for people with disabilities. We've had them out at Roshapan. There's a beautiful video on YouTube, Warriors on Wheels, Roshapan, where they brought people in wheelchairs. We've given them Roshapan, had carte blanche.
Wow.
And I think that is where you really see the product you've developed and designed come into action and actually getting that user experience. And the testimonies coming from the user at the end of the day.
Amazing.
That is heartwarming stuff. And many of them saying, look, they're here doing an audit and so on, but they will come back with their families. And we do have a lot of repeat visitors through Warriors on Wheels. What we've also done with Warriors on Wheels is we actually funded these, what they call cycle buggies.
Okay.
So the Cape Town cycle tour.
Yes.
We funded 2 sets of buggies, and they attached to the back of a bicycle, and they actually allowed for different abled individuals to actually experience that magnificent race. And then in 2022, we were again approached by Warriors on Wheels to say, look, we actually want to enter a team into the Two Oceans Marathon.
Wow.
And they came with a running buggy, which CapeNature looked at. They showed us some design concepts.
Wow,
We've
epic.
invested in that. And again, it's a different experience.
Yeah.
And these buggies, the running buggy as well as the cycle buggies, are available. And they actually take youth into our nature reserves and give them these amazing, amazing experiences.
Man, that's so cool.
And then lastly, we also work with Taryn
yes.
from Livable around audits, advocacy work, marketing collateral. She's a huge social media influencer. And I think she's definitely one of CapeNature's advocates
I see.
for getting people into our protected areas.
Amazing. So you've both spoken so much about Rashapan. Let's talk about Rashapan. Because that sounds like a great example of how all of you have worked together to create a built environment that is accessible for people and in like the pursuit of universal access. So I'm sure both of you have a lot to say about Rashapan having been involved. Shiraz, do you want to start with the ways that you went about making sure that Rashapan is literally physically built for people to access?
Dan, as I said earlier, it's all about that change in mindset. So when we embarked on the Rashapan project, the brief to the architects were, we need to look at universal access.
Okay.
It cannot be an afterthought. So from a conceptualization, design, concept phase, the architect at the time onboarded Russell and his company in an advisory capacity.
I see.
To look at how we can design this. And I think what is amazing, it's from start to finish.
Right.
You pull up to the Rashapan Nature Reserve, you've got disabled-friendly parking bays. From there, you go on to boardwalks that were particularly designed, and it's this network of boardwalks that actually connects all the accommodation
Yeah, I've
units.
stayed there. It's amazing.
The swimming pool, the office precinct, and so on. And then also, coming in to the unit itself, your door widths need to be accurate.
Yeah.
The ramp levels need to be at a particular degree. Also, movable furniture.
Right.
Because each one's got their own preference. Your counter heights need to be at a certain level. Your passageways need to be nice and broad as well. You go into the bathrooms, huge showers, which I also enjoy when I'm there.
Yeah, that's just
from
objectively
time
a
to
great
time.
move. To any architects listening, I don't really care who you're building for. Just the shower should be a room, guys.
Yeah, and then also within the shower is adjustable shower heads, taps, seating areas, and so on. So I think at Rashapan really put CapeNature on the map
Sure.
for people with disabilities.
Russell, tell me about the experience of being able to tell an architect, this is how you make a place for someone like me to actually enjoy it. It must have been like wildly thrilling, actually.
It is, but it's also very sad that I have to tell a professional who should know what to do,
True.
how to do it. But my background, I was involved way back when we were formulating the National Building Regulations
I see.
through an organization called DPSA. And those regulations haven't changed much since what, the 1980s?
Wow.
God, that's a long time ago. But the rules in those guidelines are what define the environment that we need to make every place accessible. And any public space should be designed around those criteria. Ramps at the correct height and that. Coming back to Rashapan, the boardwalks, initially there were some boardwalks there, but they didn't have edges on them.
I see.
And the first thing you've got to do is you've got visually impaired folk using a cane. So you need to give them an indicator as to where the end is so they can touch something. Because if they can go off it, they don't know what is beyond it. So, simple things like that. So working with the architects, I was able to double check the things that they were implementing and then say, look, we must change that. And then at the end of the whole project, spent a whole weekend there with some friends, and we had a wonderful time and road tested it. So, we didn't destroy it.
I know, I enjoyed it
all
after
good.
you were there. No, it's an incredible place. So Russell, as somebody who's uniquely positioned to understand disability as it interacts with tourism, what are some of the challenges that still face the travel industry as a whole, beyond the ones that you've already mentioned? And what would you like to see happen more in future?
I'd like to see the sort of regulations governing accessible tourism a lot broader and applied where they should be. We have Gradings Council where we're trying to grade establishments so that people know what they're getting and having a standard that everybody can trust. So it's a trust thing, and also for people not to be scared of the cost factor.
Okay.
Because everybody says, oh, but it's going to cost money. No, it's not. Because at the end of the day, if you do it right the first time, it doesn't come back to you.
Right.
Because retrofitting things is expensive. And the other one is that for every one person with a disability who travels, there's normally two or more people with them.
Yes.
So immediately you've got a bigger constituency traveling. And that is definitely a cash cow. Why are we not cashing in on that? And then the last one really is to say to those people with disabilities, don't hold back. Because too many of them look at the world and go, oh, it's so unfair, I can't do it. There's no such thing as I can't. I want to do it, and it's just about how.
Sure.
And for me, I've done things, and thank God I've got a bunch of lunatic friends who are prepared to help me do it.
You do need people like that in
Yeah.
your life. Maybe Shiraz is one of your lunatic friends. Shiraz, finally from you, as CapeNature looks into, I guess, the next era, this year and beyond, in terms of trying to extend universal access as far as possible, what are you seeing coming up that you would love to achieve?
Look, I think there's a number of initiatives, Dan, that we are busy with at the moment. Over the current financial year and the next financial year, we're looking at doing a whole new development at the Stony Point Penguin Colony.
Amazing.
We're looking at, it's going to be an engineering marvel in a
For the
protected
penguins
area.
too, yeah, exactly.
But I think it's really, again, taking the concept of universal accessibility, broadening the boardwalks, making sure there's information laybys, pause areas, also moms with tods in prams, and really catering for everyone. So that's a definite big project we're embarking on. But then also from a marketing advocacy perspective, there's a lot of new things happening as far as universal access is concerned. Just if you look at some of our interpretation, we've moved away from that 10,000 words on a interpretation panel that's just going to take you an hour to get through.
Yes.
We're really going to focus on stuff like more visual content with bigger writing and fewer words.
I see.
Also, a lot of our marketing content, especially our videos and our reels, subtitles
Yeah.
is in there, and also the call to action.
Right.
So even if you are visually impaired, the videos and the marketing collateral is of such a nature that it creates that immersive experience.
For sure.
So those are some of the key projects we're embarking on over the next 1 to 2 years. We also, in the next year, planning on creating a dedicated page on our website
Okay.
that addresses issues around universal access and what we're doing as an entity. And also, it's going to be a one-stop shop. So if you want to book a unit or a campsite and you want to know anything about it, will be housed under one tab on our website.
I see. Man, I'm so inspired and far better informed than I was 20 to 30 minutes ago. Russell Vollmer, thank you so much. Shiraz Ismail, thank you so much for this really genuinely fascinating episode of Green Noise. Now I made it sound like some of them are not genuinely fascinating. They are. Thank you so much for joining us.